Well, good morning. I am Dr. Elena Jackson, the Managing Director of Global Detroit, a nonprofit economic development organization that believes that through the intentional inclusion of immigrants into our state and region's economic development policies, practices, programs, and strategies, we can shape a more vibrant and prosperous Michigan for all Michiganders. I also had the pleasure and privilege to serve as a gubernatorial appointee on the Jobs, Talent, and People Work Group of the Growing Michigan Together Council. Our work group regularly discussed the importance of immigration to our population stabilization and growth, the importance of immigration to our economy, and the importance of immigration to the innovation and STEM sectors of the Michigan economy. While it was surprising for some in the work group to learn that 28.2% of all of the software developers in Michigan and 18.6% of all of the STEM workers in Michigan were immigrants, which, by the way, are impressive statistics when you consider that only 7% of Michigan's population is foreign-born. These are actually typical statistics for states in the Midwest. Similarly, when you look back 20 or 30 years, the importance of immigration to our state's population stabilization and growth is obvious, because without the growth Michigan has experienced in its immigrant population, our state would have lost population. Today, the Michigan Global Talent Coalition is proud to partner with the American Immigration Council to release new data research on these topics. The Michigan Global Talent Coalition is a coalition of approximately 20 businesses and economic development organizations from every corner of the state who have joined to advocate for immigrant-inclusive talent programs and strategies to secure Michigan's future. Members include Business Leaders for Michigan, Mich Auto, the Small Business Association of Michigan, Michigan Works Association, Detroit and Grand Rapids Chambers, InvestUP, Traverse Connect, Southwest Michigan First, and business, chamber, and economic development groups in Flint, Lansing, Midland, and Saginaw. The Michigan Global Talent Coalition has advocated for the Michigan Global Talent Initiative, which is a 5-year program to add 100,000 to 125,000 skilled immigrant workers to the Michigan workforce by 2030. The initiative reflects a 2019 strategy written by Global Detroit, the Grand Rapids Chambers, and Mich Auto, with the Governor's Office of 60 by 30 and Office of Global Michigan, and with the assistance from national experts, including the National Skills Coalition, Migration Policy Institute, and American Immigration Council. Today, I am joined by 3 such leaders from Michigan who believe in the value and importance of including immigrants in Michigan's talent and workforce strategies. To my right, Steve Tabachman, who I call my partner in crime. He serves as the Executive Director of Global Detroit. He is a former state representative and former House Majority Floor Leader. We also have former Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley, who is the President and CEO of the Small Business Association of Michigan. SBAM is actually the largest chamber in terms of members in the state of Michigan. Former Lieutenant Governor Calley is deeply familiar with these issues dating back to his leadership in Governor Snyder's administration. And last but not least, Rick Baker, who is the President and CEO of the Grand Rapids Chamber and is working in partnership with the West Michigan CEO Council and the Welcome Kent County Initiative. And through that work, Rick has been a consistent and strong voice on these issues. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Steve.
Thanks. Well, thanks, Elena. Thanks for your leadership on the Jobs, Talent, and People Work Group of the Growing Michigan Together Council. I also want to thank the American Immigration Council for this detailed report and the members of the Michigan Global Talent Coalition for their support as well. To learn more about the Michigan Global Talent Coalition, you can visit michiganglobaltalent.org. Again, michiganglobaltalent.org. So I'm here to run through the top line numbers of the American Immigration Council research, but the bottom line is that immigrants are responsible for the majority of Michigan's population growth. They are highly educated and skilled. Immigrants fill critical needs in our economy, and they are entrepreneurial. Bottom line, they add value to Michigan's economy. They add value to our state's diversity and culture, and they add value to our quality of life. So here are the report's findings. Over the past 10 years, Michigan's immigrant population grew by more than 87,000 Michigan residents, and they accounted for 57.7% of the state's population growth, so more than half of our population growth. Sorry. As of 2022, there were 687,000 new Americans in Michigan. They made up 6.9% of the population. And in 2022 alone, new Americans in Michigan earned $31.3 billion in earnings. They contributed $5.5 billion to federal taxes and $2.6 billion to state and local taxes. They contributed $67.8 billion to the state gross domestic product, which is 10% of our GDP as a state. Again, they made up 7% of our population, but 8.4% of our working age population and 8.4% of our employed population. And they were 24% more likely to be of working age. Nearly 23% of immigrants in Michigan have a four-year college degree have a graduate degree. 24% have a graduate degree compared to 11.7% of US-born Michiganders. Overall, 44% of Michigan's immigrants have a college degree compared to 31% of US-born Michiganders. They comprised 18.6% of all the workers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. As Elena said, they account for 28% of the software developers, but they also account for 24% of the mechanical engineers and 17.8% of the workforce in electronic components and product manufacturing. There are 46,200 immigrant entrepreneurs in our state. They generate $1.4 billion in business income. They represent 11% of all of our businesses. And in 2022, you were 35% more likely to start a business if you were an immigrant. So those are the facts. And there's more of them online when you read the report. It's a 13-page data-filled report. Our coalition was formed to advocate for better policies to leverage these contributions into our broader economic and talent shortages. We were formed specifically around a comprehensive immigrant inclusion strategy to add 100 to 125,000 skilled immigrant workers to our workforce by 2030 to ensure that we meet the ambitious 60 by 30 goals. For the strategy, the Michigan Global Talent Initiative included 7 strategies to retain international students, connect skilled immigrants with opportunities, support immigrant high-tech startups, expand contextualized ESL programs, invest in community colleges that help ensure immigrant student success, and to attract skilled immigrants from other states. Funding for the initiative was approved in the fiscal year 2023 and fiscal year 2024 budgets, and $3 million has been spent to date on these programs, and they make Michigan the national leader in skilled immigrant integration programs across the country. Already, we have seen 5 job coaches hired at our partners at the Michigan Works Association across the state, from Grand Rapids to Macomb County. Over 200 skilled immigrants since February have enrolled in that program. We've already placed several people in jobs, some receiving salary increases as much as $65,000. We have over $500,000 invested in partnership with the Office of 60 by 30, the Michigan College Access Network, into 6 community colleges from Muskegon to Grand Rapids to Flint and Monroe, and have started the first best practices learning cohort of community colleges serving immigrants. This is the first kind of state investment made anywhere in the country. We have new immigrant startup founders placed at Lawrence Tech and Michigan Tech, and we've signed a contract with Grand Valley State, and we'll be placing startups there soon. And our leadership in the Global Entrepreneur in Residence program, which is that program, is now being copied in California, New York, and Washington, and budget proposals are pending in New Jersey and Utah. We are the national leader in this work. Some 350 international students have come to job placement events, trainings, and job fairs. 70 employers have participated, and we are the national leader in international student retention. And soon, on June 4th, we will release 700 ESL licenses for employers, community college, and workforce agencies to help professional immigrants improve their English skills. And there's much, much more to come. So today we wanted to highlight the importance of immigrants to our economy and population growth. We wanted to urge the Michigan legislature to continue funding for the Michigan Global Talent Initiative and other endeavors like the New Michigander Fund. And we wanted to encourage business, higher education, workforce development, and local government to join us and get engaged in our coalition and in the local work that happens around these 7 initiatives. In the end, immigrant inclusion is a local endeavor, and it will need local engagement if we are to build upon these early wins and reach our ambitious goals of adding 100 to 125,000 skilled immigrant workers to our economy to help meet our 60 by 30 goals. The data released today documents that immigrants are the single biggest driver to our population growth in the last decade. To develop a Michigan population growth strategy without immigrants would be as if one were to develop a Michigan economic strategy without autos, manufacturing, or agriculture. Fortunately, the Michigan Global Talent Coalition and the Michigan Global Talent Initiative provide a pathway forward. I'm going to turn it back over to my colleague, Dr. Elena Jackson.
So next we'll bring former Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley, who will talk about the importance of immigration to small business in Michigan and to Michigan's economy.
All right, thank you, Dr. Jackson, and thank you. It's a pleasure to be here to support the work, the statewide work that Global Detroit does. My friend Steve Tabachman, this is such a critical aspect of Michigan's economy. It goes way beyond what most people intuitively think. In terms of small business, we do at SBAM an entrepreneurial scorecard each year. This year marks 20 years, and one of the outliers that we've seen over the course of that 20 years is the number of self-employed people. So in Michigan, not only do we have a huge increase in the number of people who are self-employed, but also they have higher earnings in self-employed people than the national averages. So we're truly an outlier. If you were to look at the immigration. The contribution that immigrants make to that, it is massive. There are 30,000 immigrants who are self-employed here in Michigan. The stats, the way that we're outperforming the nation would not be possible without immigration. The number of people that are employed by businesses that are started by immigrants, it's hard to keep current stats on it, but I know that about 150,000 Michiganders that are employed because immigrants started businesses here. Accounts for about $600 million in income to people who are employed by people who immigrated here and started businesses. And really, if you look at even the giant companies that have been here, they're household names here. They were started by immigrants that moved, like Dow or Meyer. There's just so much contribution that happens, and we really can't afford to rest. If we didn't have immigration, we would have shrunk last year. Michigan as a state literally would have gotten smaller. The number of people in our state would have shrunk without immigration. Our labor force participation, which is finally starting to catch up, would not be where it is today without immigration, because the labor force participation rate among immigrants is higher. The educational attainment rates are higher. The 60 by 30 goal would not be attainable without immigration. All of these different aspects of of the goals that we have economically are more within reach because we have immigrants coming to the state, making it their home, putting down their roots in creating businesses which create opportunities for others. We wouldn't be the same without it. So it's a pleasure to be here to support the work, and I'll turn it back over to Dr. Jackson.
Thank you, Brian. Our last speaker is Richard Baker, the president and CEO of the Grand Rapids Area Chamber of Commerce. He'll be talking to us about the importance of immigration, specifically to West Michigan.
Thank you. Morning. Well, addressing the talent gaps and supporting growing West Michigan are top issues for our business community and our region's long-term competitiveness. A key challenge for us is the reality that over the next decade, the volume of unfilled jobs will continue to rise, and the demographics are working against us. One way to address this issue is through immigration. Inspired by the Kent County Welcome Plan and its goal of maximizing the economic impact of new Americans, the Grand Rapids Chamber is working to provide leadership on immigration to support a more prosperous future. Our initiatives include a new partnership with Global Detroit and Grand Valley State University on the Global Talent Retention Initiative and the Global Entrepreneur in Residence Program for West Michigan, and relaunching of our Michigan Immigration Compact and a new American Economic Impact Report, much like the one that we just unveiled for the entire state. We are proud to be partners with Global Detroit, the Detroit Chamber, the American Immigration Council, and nearly 24 members of the Michigan Global Talent Coalition to release this new report for the whole state, because simply put, the numbers don't lie. Immigration is a critical source of our state's economic prosperity and our future growth. This report underscores the crucial role immigrants play in key industries, business creation, and consumer spending. The data makes it clear that to the business community and policymakers that immigration is a force for good and a real solution to workforce needs. It shows that new Americans don't take jobs, they create them. They don't take tax dollars, they create tax dollars. Immigrants in the workforce also help keep jobs and companies here in our area, creating and preserving thousands of manufacturing jobs that would have otherwise vanished or moved elsewhere. This data will help make the case for a broader audience as we work to support a growing Michigan, but it's up to all of us, and the Chamber's excited to be a part of this effort. Our call to action today is to take what you learn from the report and share it with your colleagues, share it with policymakers, state and federal officials, engage them in conversations, change the narrative about immigration and its impact on our community and our state. Talk to our state legislators and encourage them to support the next 3 years of funding for the Global Talent Initiative. By maximizing the potential of new Americans, our state can drive innovation, tap into the wealth of talent, and build stronger, more prosperous future for all of us. Thank you.
So one thing I've learned through my travels, I've lived in about 8 different countries, and one thing I've learned in my travels, and some of you who know me may have heard me say this before, is inclusion is a strategy that works every time. Inclusion means you, it means me, it means your neighbors, it means your cousins. Inclusion is for everybody. And through inclusion, we're going to get to a more prosperous Michigan for all Michiganders. So we're going to take this time to open up for questions, should there be any.
So right now, I want to know what your message for legislators, state legislators, what they can do, and then also federal. I mean, this is an issue that has to be solved at the federal level. What is it that you guys expect from the federal government on immigration?
I'm going to ask Steve Tabachman to take that question.
And I apologize, I didn't get a chance to acknowledge Warren Call, who's here from the Northern Michigan Chambers Alliance Grand Traverse. Oh, he just walked away. But anyway, your question was, what can state legislators do, and what is our message to them, and what's our message to federal legislators? To state legislators, this coalition is formed around the Michigan Global Talent Initiative. It is a 5-year, $25 million proposal to add 100 to 125,000 skilled immigrants to the Michigan workforce to meet the 60 by 30 goals. We have received 2 appropriations, full appropriations, $5 million a year. And so we're urging them to fund the next 3 years, and in particular in the 25 budget, to keep $5 million in that budget so we can continue the work that has really been built in this last year. And then you mentioned that this is a federal issue, but there are things that our state can and is doing right now to leverage those contributions to grow that immigrant population. International student retention is a great example. Most international students are coming for STEM degrees, and as a right, they can work for 3 full years after they get their degree on their student visa. And so we ought to be taking advantage of those 3 years in the Michigan economy, and part of that is helping to educate our employers and connect them to that talent. So there's lots of things we can do under existing law. I think almost every member of our coalition would say that federal immigration law isn't fully working for all of us. And many, almost all of our members of the coalition, and there's a few others who are not in the coalition, signed a 2020 Michigan Compact on immigration led by the Grand Rapids and Detroit Chambers and Global Detroit to put together. I think everyone I've mentioned is a signer to that. And that sets forth some common sense federal immigration reforms that business and community leaders get behind. And you can find that at mycompact.org. And as I think the Grand Rapids Chamber is thinking about updating that compact to also apply to state and local policies as well. So there's a lot that folks can do, but I think the number one thing is first to understand the actual data. what is immigration? Because it's a lot more than what you see on cable news. It's a lot more than any headline. It's a lot more than even one profile. And we have a couple wonderful profiles in this report. One of Bing Goy over in West Michigan, who many of you know, owns Eastern Floral, is a current Grand Rapids City Commissioner who came as a refugee. And the other is Manish Senta, who owns Tech Wiesen. He came as an international student, over 800 full-time employees, $140 million a year in U.S. revenue in that business. Those are the types of folks that we want to encourage to come to Michigan. And so we need comprehensive immigration reform so the system works, because right now, many people, it doesn't work.
So a quick follow-up. This is a really divisive issue in a presidential election. How are you dealing with that?
Well, I think what you see is that it doesn't need to be a divisive issue, particularly when you focus on the economics of it. And this is not a coalition that formed on federal immigration issues. We acknowledge that there are, a lot of challenges, and this is a political issue. But we're saying if you look at the economics, there's things we can do today in our communities, that make immigration work for Michigan. It's already working for Michigan, but we ought to build on that strength. I don't know if either of Warren or Brian want to add to that, or Jim? All right. Yeah.
I feel like there's great understanding of what kind of doesn't keep young people here. What barriers are you facing when you're trying to attract immigrants? Like, is Michigan equal to other states, or maybe second, third hand? How are we faring when it's comes to trying to attract?
Rick, would you like to take that one?
I can try.
Okay.
I think as we talked about in our comments earlier, I think Michigan is actually focusing on this work and maybe ahead of some of the other states. There are a lot of barriers individual immigrants face, of course. There's a whole new culture, whole new languages, all kinds of things that they have to navigate. But I think with the partnerships and the work that we're doing, to help knock down some of those barriers and help people navigate all the complex systems that support them. But I think we as a state are ahead of the game and have a lot of communities, a lot of states that we've been interacted with.
I'll add that we have, through a Welcoming Michigan program, we've had more cities, counties, and townships declare themselves welcoming in Michigan at one point than any other state in the country. We have over 20 welcoming communities. The Welcome Kent County plan is an example of that. We have cities that have gone out and gotten certified as welcoming. Detroit is the first certified welcoming city. And so there are a number of people that are sort of rolling out the welcome mat. We also need everybody in the community, our businesses, our universities, our community colleges, people in different industries to understand how immigration works and what they can hire under. And I think we're leaving a lot of talent out on the playing field. We have 33,500 international students in Michigan. It is the 9th largest international student population in the country. And we rank about 9th or 10th in hiring those students after they graduate, but there's no reason we can't move into a top 5 position. We're the first state to appropriate dollars through the Michigan Global Talent Initiative to make that happen.
Beyond the Global Talent Initiative, Steve, you mentioned the New Michigander. I'm curious, that's been a little more controversial, how it's been spent anyways, on rental fees.
I think that was a different source, that one for rental. So yeah, I think so. So that's an integration fund. The Office of Global Michigan's in charge of that fund, and they have allocated some sub-grants to, I think, 17 nonprofits around the state for different things. This is but it is another way states are approaching this. There's a number of states that have line items to support integration, support naturalization of, immigrants who are in their state who are eligible for citizenship. There's some great research about how much your income goes up when you become a citizen, and that helps people get their Social Security dollars that they've paid in back. English language attainment, those kinds of things. And so we're focused on the high skilled, and that also needs to be part of what the approach needs to be. Yeah, Rob.
Does the report include a breakdown of either the countries or the regions where immigrants are coming from? What about the skill level, the kinds of
Yes to all of the above. Yes to all of the above. Steve or
There are
anybody wanna go
different
deeper?
areas, and I don't recall them off the top of my head, that break down by country of origin, that look at, like, I can't remember exactly which portions. I know also there's a in-depth analysis of the refugees who live here, both ones who came in the last year, but also ones who have come since, forever. So they're, approximately, I think, 2,700 refugees from last year, but over 70,000 refugees who have come over the last several decades. It breaks down income levels by household for immigrants, for refugees, for US born. So there's a lot of data in this report. The bottom line number for us is that 60% of the population growth is from immigration, and that we think is critical.
Any final questions? Well, we want to, oh, yes, I see one. Yes. Would Steve or Brian like to take that?
A lot of people are surprised to see the type of population and development that's happening in Toronto and really the other side of the Detroit River. That province has experienced some pretty incredible population growth. On the same in the last few years, it looks a lot like what you've seen in Florida or Texas, and so it kind of busts the theory that that you can't do it with cold weather. And so, but if you really pull back the layers, how did they achieve that? It has been recruitment from U.S. universities. So people that have to go back home, and Canada's saying, come on in. And so they're staying in North America, but not in the U.S. And they've built a whole strategy around capturing people that are graduating from U.S. universities, which is exactly what our economy needs, desperate for. So I mean, the idea of retaining more students is just such a smart place to start.
Yes.
How do you convince communities to come? I mean, I know there's a lot of communities that split and divided, as I was talking earlier. So what are some strategies that you can use to actually help convince people, hey, this is good?
I'm going to ask Steve to speak on this one, but first I want to say that this is not new to Michigan. This is a strategy that has already helped to build the Michigan economy to what it is. Henry Ford didn't care where you were from. Henry Ford said, come work on the line, and we're going to do something that nobody else has done before, and we're going to put Detroit on the map, and we're going to put Michigan on the map. This is actually a return to what is already built and contributed to our success. And so I think we need to remind people of that. I think we need to remind people of their own families' migration journeys and how their families came to be here, and with their families helped to contribute in doing so. And that they worked along the side in the midst of segregation, Black folks, Chaldean folks, Irish folks, people that nobody else wanted, we took and created something nobody else did. And so I think we remind them of that and that part of their history in Michigan. And I think we also made clear that the numbers don't lie about foreign-born folks already being deeply embedded in our economy and in our communities, and what those contributions are, and have contributed not just to our population growth and stabilization, but to our economy. I'm going to ask Steve to add more details to that.
And I'm just going to build off of Lieutenant Governor Calley's earlier response, which is that we in Michigan, you go to Saginaw, Flint, Detroit, parts of Grand Rapids. You can also go to, Lake County. You can go up into the Upper Peninsula. We know what population loss brings to communities. You can see schools that have to close because we don't have enough students. You can see abandoned buildings, in our urban core. And that's what happens when you don't have enough people. It's not that there's a fixed number of jobs and everyone becomes fully employed. It's a lose-lose cycle of population loss. You can look at what happened to Japan for 2 decades. And I think for Michigan, one way that we become welcoming is much like Canada has, is they've recognized that it is critical to their own economic self-interest, to our own prosperity. So we're, at this conference, we talk about we need to grow our population, we need to solve the talent crisis because we do not have enough workers. And that is from filling jobs at the McDonald's to, construction industry, to healthcare, to making the next advanced autos. And immigration has been the key driver to sustaining what's going on. And I think when communities see that and they say, I want to attract that business, I want to keep my businesses open, that's what makes them welcoming. At the same time, it's not, we need to work with people where they're at and recognize that and work to make our communities that work for everyone. It's not to recruit immigrants at the expense of lifelong Michiganders. This has to be all of us in it together.
So with that, we're going to wrap up. We want to thank you all for joining us today. We hope that you buy into the call of action, that you pick up the charge, that you read the report, and share it with those in your networks. I want to thank you to Brian, to Steve, and to Rick, and to the American Immigration Council for this work. Thank you.